Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Partnering with Technology Professionals. I'm Rebecca Todd, your webinar moderator and organizer, and I work as Innovation Specialist for the Arkansas Small Business and Technology Development Center. We are taxpayer funded to provide confidential one-on-one consulting, training, and market research services for entrepreneurs and established companies across the state. We have been working in Arkansas for over 40 years, and we have 10 regional offices that allow us to help entrepreneurs and established companies in their backyards. And most of our regions have at least one university-based center. Through our center's competitively awarded federal and state technology grants, the ASBTDC is able to offer continued outreach through events like this webinar to share information for statewide and national audiences. We help entrepreneurs with every step of preparing and submitting small business innovation research or SBIR proposal applications, as well as state-level applications for supplemental technology commercialization funds. To date, our clients have won 90 SBIR and Small Business Technology Transfer Awards across the participating agencies. We also have industry database subscriptions that allow us to pull market data that helps our technology clients prepare key sections of their proposals, such as the commercialization plan. Everyone who registered for today's event will be receiving a copy of the slides, as well as a link to the recording within 2 days through GoToWebinar email. Before we start, let's take a moment to make sure that you're ready and familiar with GoToWebinar. So first, you should have a control panel on the right side of your screen. You can minimize this panel by clicking on the arrow button that's orange in the upper left corner, and you can expand the panel by clicking that same button. We'll take a moment to practice. And second, you can have the ability to submit questions using the question pane located near the bottom of the control panel. And please do submit questions throughout today's presentation, and we'll have time at the end for Q&A with our speaker. Now with that, I want to go ahead and introduce today's speaker, Russell Harrison. Russ has 25 years of experience working on behalf of professional societies, companies, and trade associations as a government relations professional. He is currently acting managing director of the IEEE USA, the American component of the world's largest technology professional society, IEEE. With 150,000 individual members across the United States, IEEE USA is the leading voice for technology professionals in the United States. Over his 19-year career with IEEE USA, Russ has worked to build bridges between engineers and government decision makers, helping each understand the other as they work to drive technological innovation across the U.S. Russ has spoken at over 290 local, national, and international events about public policy and the need for regular citizens to interact with their elected leaders. Russ has a master's in public management from the University of Maryland and a Bachelor of Arts in political science from Allegheny College. He's a certified association executive and a certified planning commissioner from Virginia Tech. With that, I'll now turn the presentation over to Russ. Thank you so much, Russ.
Thank you, Rebecca. This is a fantastic opportunity, and I'm thrilled to be able to take advantage of it. Happy holidays to everyone as we head into the middle of December. What I'm going to talk about today is about the organization I work for, IEEE. IEEE has been at the heart of, well, America's, but the global innovation revolution since literally the very beginning. But we're an organization that doesn't necessarily get a lot of public attention. And so, kind of like an iceberg, most people are not aware of the depth and breadth of the organization and the opportunities that we can be of service to you and to your agencies and your programs as you do the things that you do. For example, we have a fairly large membership of entrepreneurs, of small business owners, of people who would like to be entrepreneurs and small business owners. And so finding ways to help them is a part of what I do, and a part of which a couple different groups within IEEE do. And so there ought to be ways that we can work with each other to help make that happen. The problem is, as I said, IEEE is not an easy organization to navigate. And so I want to spend some time this morning kind of demystifying the organization and identifying ways that we may be of service to you and to your programs. And with that, IEEE is in fact a global organization. Most of our members do not reside in the United States, and most of our events are not in the United States. We were founded here, but we're predominantly elsewhere. We are a nonprofit. We are incorporated in New York. So legally, we are an American entity, but our membership is global. What we exist to do, broadly speaking, is pull people together for the purpose of encouraging and supporting innovation and innovative endeavors. And we've been doing it for a very long time, and we are rather proud of our ability to do that. But we are a community fundamentally. IEEE, as we'll talk about more in detail later, is an organization of individuals, not of companies. And we're a voluntary membership association of people that want to make the world a better place and want to make it a better place through technology and the use of technology in the service of humanity. And so that's what we do. And like I said, we've been doing it for a very long time. IEEE was first created in 1884 by Thomas Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, and a couple other less well-known folks. But that's kind of at the very dawn of the electrotechnology revolution. That's kind of at the very beginning of electricity being a significant part of society. We were founded as the American Institute of Engineers. We've changed our name a couple times, changed our acronyms, but back in the 60s, we became the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers to emphasize the global nature of what we do, although, as I said, we still are located in the United States, and a lot of our members are still here. Notable members, and this could be an incredibly long list, but I just picked out a few interesting ones. Nikola Tesla became a member after about 3 or 4 years after we were founded. Little aside, Tesla wasn't the most mentally healthy individuals, and in his later years, he actually lived in a hotel in New York City where he was just barely able to care for himself. It was kind of a sad story of the end of a brilliant mind. But it was actually IEEE, or our predecessor organization, the AIEE, that paid for his hotel room for the later part of his life in recognition of his contributions to society and to technology. Norm Augustine, Lockheed Martin's long-term CEO and generally thoroughly innovative individual, is and has been a member for most of his career. Gordon Moore, who came up with Moore's Law, was not only a member of IEEE, but he actually published Moore's Law in one of our publications, and the document is still in our library, if you're curious. Mildred Dresselhaus, the queen of carbon, who did groundbreaking work on buckyballs, carbon nanotubes, and carbon fiber technologies, is a member. Actually was a member. She passed away a couple of years ago. And then the current chair of the NSF, Sethurman Panchanathan, I gotta keep working on his name, is not only a member now, a distinguished member and fellow, but he was actually a member for much of his career. And so we're very proud of him and the role he is now playing in innovation in the United States. So our members, we've been around a long time. We've been a lot of places, done a lot of things, and we've been part of each sequential technological evolution that has brought us here to 2022. Quick overview of the organization. IEEE sponsors over 2,000 technical conferences every year. That's a little more than 5 every single calendar day of the year in 96 countries. Those conferences include conferences held in each one of the 50 states every year. We don't do a huge number of conferences in Arkansas, for example, but we did have one in 2022. A couple years before that got a little messy because we didn't do a lot of in-person meetings, but we did do virtual meetings, and we are back up to doing personal meetings and intend to have at least one conference in Arkansas in September, focusing on small businesses and small academic researchers that we're partnering with EPSCoR and NSF with. Our library of technical documents has over 5 million entries. It makes it the second largest technical library in the world after only the Library of Congress. IEEE Explorer is used by companies and countries and governments and individuals all over the world to get the latest in technological innovation. We have over 200 publications, newsletters, magazines, and other types of publications that we produce every year. That number constantly moves around as we create new ones and old ones retire. IEEE Standards Association has a library of over 1,000 technical standards, many of which lie at the very heart of our wireless and wired society. That includes the Wi-Fi standard and Ethernet standards, both of which are crucial to our current modern world. Actually, doing this over Wi-Fi today allows us to do this remote work. Most importantly, we have over 400,000 individual members around the world in over 160 countries, 150,000 of whom live in the United States. And I want to just dwell on that for a second to make sure you understand who our members are. Our members are, in fact, individuals. Basically, anywhere electricity is being used by society, we have members. That includes individuals in every single congressional district in the United States. Although in fairness, South Arkansas is one of our smallest congressional district delegations. We only have a couple dozen in the southern half of Arkansas, but we do have members literally anywhere electricity is being used. We do have corporate members as part of our Standards Association. That is because the laws and regulations governing standards development basically require it. Companies have to join so that everybody knows who everybody is representing in a standards discussion. But the rest of IEEE does not have corporate members. We do not represent companies, and we do not pick winners and losers within the corporate space. We focus only on the technology. For example, actually had an email this morning from a reporter who was asking me questions about the process that the government is going to use to allocate CHIPS Act funds to businesses to get new chip manufacturing going in the United States. And what I had to tell him is that I don't actually know what the process is. And I don't know what the process is because fundamentally I don't care. IEEE USA, my organization, worked directly with Congress, directly with Chuck Schumer's office to get the CHIPS Act passed. We were huge supporters of the bill and are enormously excited about the potential. But frankly, I don't care which companies get the money. That's not my job. I care that the money is going to be spent and the money is going to go for technological innovation. But the specific company that does it isn't really my concern. And there are other parts of the CHIPS Act that we are much more involved in. This allows us to play sort of a neutral role in the technology world, evaluating technology on its merits, rather than fighting for particular companies at the expense of other companies, which we let other people do. The technological expertise of our membership is broad and deep. This is a not comprehensive list of the fields that our members are in, and that we have pieces of IEEE focused on. More on that in just a minute. But you can see it ranges from cutting edge technology to kind of long-standing technology, everything from the Artemis program, which we have members working on, to your local utility, which is innovative and exciting, but perhaps doesn't get quite the same headlines that rocket ships do. These areas of technological competence are organized in a bunch of different ways within IEEE, including our technical societies, which is kind of our focal point. We currently have 43 technical societies, not all of which are listed here, but that's okay because this list constantly changes as older technologies kind of evolve away and newer technologies join. For example, we used to have a technical society on mainframe computers, which I know because my father was actually a member of it. That went away a long time ago because nobody uses mainframes anymore. We have, as we'll talk about in a second, a quantum computing group, which may become a society next year as quantum computing becomes a more mature technology. But this gives you a flavor of the types of things that we're involved in and the types of groups that IEEE can help you access. Within our publishing world, not only do we have one of the world's largest libraries of technical journals, the journals that we produce dominate their field in terms of the most cited, the most used, the most referenced articles in the world. As you can see, our journals in dozens of fields, this again is not a comprehensive list, dominate the top 10, top 5, top 1 journals in their fields. Not only are they dominating the field, but they are IEEE journals and publications are by far the most cited journals at the USPTO for patent applications. We're actually 3 times the size of the next group, which is Elsevier, a private group, a for-profit organization, where we are not a for-profit organization, we're a nonprofit. Our standards association, for those of you who don't do standards, to be honest with you, I don't entirely understand how the standards works. IEEE Standards Association does not write standards. What we do is we create a forum, which pretty much any interested party can bring together a coalition of groups to negotiate and draft a technical standard. And again, IEEE's job is not to determine what the standard is. It's not to determine which standard prevails in the marketplace. Our job is to convene, to create a forum and a set of rules that will allow diverse interests and, in fact, competing companies to come together to yell at each other for a while, to fight out a common standard, which allows technological innovation to move forward. We are among the world's most successful standards organizations. We are among the world's most global standards organizations. IEEE Standards is based in New York. That's where we're incorporated. But our standards processes are truly global. We also have been working recently to find ways to help smaller businesses participate in standards development processes, because that's a voice that is necessary for standards to be successful. Now, that's kind of the heart of IEEE. Beyond that, we have dozens and dozens and dozens of other groups of engineers that have gathered and organized for particular purposes. The most exciting of which are in our Future Directions Committee. Future Directions is the entrepreneurial part of IEEE. Its job is to go out, find technology that's just starting to be seen, organize people involved for investigation into whether this is a viable technology, to determine what the technology needs to thrive, if there's research that needs to be done, if it needs support from companies or from governments, and to try to get new technology up off the ground and build communities in which it can operate. People in that field can talk to each other. These are 6 of our current Future Directions projects: blockchain, public safety, which is fairly new and also involves a lot of interaction with government agencies, digital reality, digital privacy, future networks, looking at what's next for the interconnectivity that drives our modern technology society, and then IEEE Quantum, which is interesting because the IEEE Quantum Committee will likely not be a committee by the end of next year. It will probably be elevated to be a technical society. Just to give you an idea of how this works, our Future Directions Committee actually investigated cryptocurrency a couple years ago, and we brought together some experts who looked at the technology and actually concluded, and I think some events may prove us right, that cryptocurrency wasn't a real technology, that it was something else, but it wasn't really something we wanted to be involved in. Blockchain, on the other hand, which is the technology that underlies cryptocurrency and a lot of other things, is a real technology, does have a future, and we do have a group that is still organizing conferences and publications and just groups of people interested in the technology. Outside of technology, we have a host of special interest groups, including Women in Engineering, which is the largest, globally the largest collection of women engineers in the world. IEEE Entrepreneurship, giving a home to our small business owners and entrepreneurs. Incredibly exciting organization. IEEE SITE coordinates humanitarian activities within IEEE and the use of technology for humanitarian purposes. That group is likely to go away next year also, as our humanitarian activities are elevated to a more formal organization within the IEEE hierarchy next year. IEEE Young Professionals tries to bridge the gap between student members and established professionals, helping younger engineers make that transition. IEEE Eta Kappa Nu is our college honor society, represented at most of the engineering schools in the United States, and a great number of them globally as well. IEEE USA is very important because that's where I work. IEEE USA represents IEEE members in the United States. Note that I didn't say American IEEE members. We represent everybody, all of our members in the 50 states, and Jamaica for reasons that make sense only to our members, whether they're citizens or not. There is an IEEE Canada, an IEEE Europe, an IEEE Japan, China, India, and we're starting to see these geographic units popping up and becoming more prominent within the IEEE over the last 10 years. We also have sections in most major countries around the world. We have subsections in some of the smaller countries. We have a subsection in Afghanistan. We have subsections in many of the countries in Africa that are just getting organized. But we are, in fact, a global organization, and we have organizations dedicated to the unique needs of engineers, policymakers, and companies in every country almost that has technology. Now, a little note about how we're organized. And the quick answer is we're really not organized. If any of you are familiar with General Electric and how GE was organized back in its heyday, back in the 80s and 90s, GE had a relatively small corporate office, and then a lot of very big companies associated with it that were run pretty much as standalone organizations, responsible to the corporate office, but basically on their own. IEEE operates kind of similarly. We have a huge number, and I didn't put all of them on the screen because it just would have gotten silly, a huge number of sub-organizations, societies, chapters, sections, local sections, we'll talk about in a minute, student chapters, interest groups, conferences, standards organizations, blah, 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 all these various groups, all meeting to accomplish specific ends among specific subsets of our organization. And each of these units is more or less independent of the central office. They all report to the central office, but they kind of operate on their own. For example, I mentioned before, we host more than five conferences every day of the year on average, somewhere in the world, for over 2,000 conferences a year. Now, how many staff members would it take to run 2,000 technical conferences a year, some of which are quite big? Some of our conferences attract 10, 15,000 people. And the answer is, it would be a huge number of staff. Our conference business is being run by only a couple hundred people who simply have no chance at running 2,000 conferences a year. Instead, the conferences are run by our members, and they're conceived by our members. And in fact, there are instances every year when our members don't bother telling us they're running a conference until after it's over. What happens is individual IEEE members, 4 or 5 of them, get together and say, hey, we should do a conference on this thing because we don't have a conference on this thing. And then they do it. IEEE may provide support. They may tell us they're doing it in advance. And like I said, sometimes they don't. But they are empowered to just do things on their own, with IEEE creating a forum and a structure in which that can happen. And that happens all over the organization. Now, this makes IEEE an incredibly innovative and flexible organization. It also makes it a pain in the neck to work with, because it's very hard to find out who the specific people are that you want to work with on a specific project. And that's one of the reasons for this dialogue today, is to help you identify some ways that you might be able to work with IEEE if we can connect you with the right people. So let's talk about those opportunities for a minute. Now, I'm not going to give you an exhaustive list of ways that we can work together. What I want to do is highlight some ways that we are working with government agencies and which we might be of service to NSF and your particular program at some point in the future. IEEE convenes panels of technical experts to help policymakers, government agencies, government officials make decisions all over the world. For example, we do technical reviews of existing programs. For example, Buenos Aires has a smart cities program. They set it up, they got it running, then they reached out to the local IEEE section and the Smart Cities Technical Society to take a look at it, to say, did we do it right? Are we using the right technology? What's the next technology that we should integrate into this? How can we do a better job? And IEEE's, again, it wasn't me, it was the piece of IEEE in Buenos Aires, was able to provide that as a service. We do ecosystem reviews of the state of play of a technology in a given field. We, for example, worked with the GAO last year, helping the GAO understand grid level energy storage systems. These are basically massive batteries used by electric utilities to kind of moderate load across the utility. And so we collected, I helped with this, experts in running electrical grids and in battery technology to talk to the GAO about what is the technology, what can it do, what can't it do, where do we see it going, where is research needed, where are investments needed, just to get an understanding of the state of play in that particular field. We do horizon reviews on emerging technology. For Congress, we've done them for the GAO also in the past. I know our European members do work with the EU on this. Looking at an emerging technology and saying, okay, we think this little thing, it's not a thing yet, but we think it's going to become a thing. And we think it's going to impact society in these ways. But for that to happen, these other things have to happen as well. For example, IEEE USA has provided information to Congress on electric vehicles. We were actually one of the first groups to bring electric vehicles up to Congress to say, look, this is the technology, it's going to be a big deal. Now we're talking to Congress about what would it take to put 50 million electric vehicles on America's roads. The answer, by the way, is you can't. Not with current technology, not with current raw materials, and not with the current state of charging stations, although we know the government is working hard to fix that particular problem. But identifying emerging technologies and problems preventing emerging technologies from fully benefiting society. And then we do problem-solving reviews. Our members do this stuff all the time, particularly at a local level, helping local governments understand technological challenges and the ways technology can help them deliver services better. Your point of contact on most of these types of projects are specific technical societies. That's where technological expertise in a given area is located, usually. And so if you are interested in talking to experts about a particular technology or particular field, the technical societies are usually the best place to start to find that expertise. Second area I want to mention is communication. IEEE has a mind-boggling array of lists. Lists of engineers in particular places that work on particular technologies that are at particular stages of their life. For example, we have student sections, like I said, in most of the major engineering schools around the world, most of the engineering schools in the United States as well. We can and we do communicate with those pieces of the profession on behalf of government agencies, not quite all the time, but when we're asked. For example, we've been working with the PTO for the past several years. The Patent and Trademark Office made a decision about 7 or 8 years ago now that they needed more technology engineers on staff. Patent attorneys are lovely, but because a huge percentage of the PTO's work involves technology, particularly software, which is uniquely hard to patent, they needed more experts on staff. And so they reached out to us and say, can you help us find technologists who might be interested in becoming patent examiners? And as the PTO holds job fairs around the country, IEEE is able to blast it out to that particular geographic area. There's a big one in Denver that I worked on last year. Actually, it was pre-COVID. Everything went virtual. But we did one in Denver. Reached out to our Denver section, blasted it, which was able to blast out the announcement to their members. IEEE USA was able to blast it out to our members nationally. We also were able to reach out to the student sections at universities around Colorado, Denver, and our entrepreneurial and consulting communities in and around Denver to say, hey, this is something you might be interested in looking at. Now, the caveat to this is our communication systems are very effective, but they are not fast. It takes time for us to find the owner of the particular community that you want to reach out to. And because we operate in a decentralized environment, I can't tell, for example, the Denver section, you have to send out this email. I can ask politely, and they're usually willing to do it, but there has to be a dialogue. That's the downside of empowering our various units to make decisions. They get to make decisions, and I have to ask politely, but we're willing to do it. And we can effectively identify, usually, whatever the particular subset of the engineering profession you would like to communicate with, to get them targeted communications if you give us a little bit of time to do it. If you want me to get it done for you tomorrow, I can put it on social media. If you want it done in January, we can do something more clever. Last thing I want to highlight is high impact convening. IEEE is mind-bogglingly good at pulling together diverse interests and diverse expertise to put them, metaphorically in a room together to tackle a particular challenge. It may actually be a room, but may also be a virtual community. Technical conferences, training sessions, educational sessions, community building projects, listening sessions, whatever kind of group you may want to convene, IEEE is probably already doing it. And we can work with you to help you do whatever the unique thing you're trying to do is. IEEE regularly organizes local, regional, technical student groups and almost an endless number of subsets of technical experts, and in many cases non-technical experts, to tackle particular challenges. How to do that is complicated. It depends entirely on what you want to do. I am a great point of contact to help you figure out what part of IEEE you would want to talk about for your particular thing. There's also some context I'm going to give you in a second that may help you do this as well. But we routinely pull together academics, researchers in academia and non-academia, practitioners, just regular old technologists, consultants, industry leaders, small businesses, entrepreneurs, people who want to be entrepreneurs, students, Americans, non-Americans, Americans and non-Americans, to tackle particular projects. And frankly, this is something that IEEE does better than almost anyone else. We're really good at pulling people together. Let me give you an example. A couple of years ago, 8 random IEEE members at one of our board meetings said, you know what? We should look into how technology is changing the nature of work. What is the future of the workforce, given innovation, given what we've now seen at COVID? How has remote technologies and other technologies changed how people work and changed how they will work? It's a cool idea. So they did it. And really, that's all it took. 8 people said, this is a great idea, let's do it, and then they did. What they've done over the last 2 years, they started with 10 panels around the world involving 200 leading experts in both technology and workforce, just HR type people, and asked them, what's changing? What do you think is going to continue to change? How is technology changing how people do their jobs? IEEE also sent a survey out to 1,500 of our members around the world, basically asking them the same questions. All of that information was then collected by our 8 volunteers who collated it and condensed it into a preliminary report, which was then sent back out to our 200 global experts for comments. It was then sent back out in survey form to 1,500 additional IEEE members around the world for their thoughts and comments. All of that information is now being condensed into a report, which frankly was supposed to be out the first week of December. They're a little late. It's going to be out in January. But I've seen the preliminary report and the preliminary findings, and it's absolutely fascinating work. The point here is not this particular project, but just the type of convening that we can do to produce products, to generate information, to solve problems, if we find the right volunteers. And that's always the challenge, but if we can, they can do amazing things. Some quick examples of how IEEE USA is currently working with the US government. I mentioned technology assessment panels with the GIO, which we do. We usually do a couple of these a year. We're actually having some very preliminary conversations with them about formalizing those conversations. IEEE USA actually has a memorandum of understanding with the Small Business Administration. This was more active back in the Obama administration, didn't get as much attention during the Trump administration. We really need to get it going again in the Biden administration. But the purpose there was to help connect the SBA with people that knew how to start technology companies, because we have a ton of them in our membership, people who have successfully started tech companies. And to help the SBA understand how that's done and provide advice to startup companies. That MOU is still in effect, probably should be revitalized, but it is there. We've worked with the SBA on outreach forums to small business communities in particular parts of the country. That's something I think the CHIPS Act will make more important next year, and we're hoping to play a role in that. IEEE USA has between 2 and 4 government fellows each year. These are technology professionals that we place within the US government to provide technical advice as individuals, not as representatives of us. We usually place 2 in Congress as congressional staffers. Depending on the year, we also have fellows at USAID and the US State Department. We have conferences that intersect with the government. For example, our public safety conference, we just actually finished a conference that a number of agencies were involved in up at Johns Hopkins back in November. Our aerospace conference includes private sector, academics, but also NASA and the space agencies, Space Force, and other parts of the government that touch on space. There'll be a lot more of that in the next couple of years as well. I already mentioned our job fairs with the PTO. We do have a disaster assistance program called the MOVE Truck, which provides assistance, particularly IT assistance, to the Red Cross as they respond to natural disasters in this country. And we do a tremendous amount of technology road mapping, both for the government and for industry. As a matter of fact, the IEEE roadmap in semiconductors has been guiding semiconductor innovation and research since the late 1980s, and we're in the process of updating it again. That will, of course, be a big deal with the CHIPS Act as well. Just a quick overview of the ways that IEEE is already working with the US government. As I mentioned, a couple contacts. There's some websites there that you can go to for specific information on specific pieces of IEEE. Our Standards Association, if you're interested, I'm not sure the NSF is involved in this, but standards on the use and development of technology. Our conferences, which we have a phone number and an email address for, if you're interested in interacting with particular conferences or finding out if we have particular conferences in a given area, either geographic area or technological area, that would be a good place to start. Educational activities works with students. Any students, STEM, K through 12, in particular programs that you or any other government programs are interested in interacting with, we have some folks in that space. Our technical societies, there's a link to the list. It's best to reach out to them directly if that's what you're looking for. And if none of that works, there's a link to the IEEE Support Center, supportcenter.ieee.org. Generally speaking, our websites are not addressed very cleverly. Engineers tend to be very straightforward and efficient. Supportcenter.ieee.org is a place to go if you have no place else to go. Alternatively, quick list of the other major engineering associations, most of which we work with. These folks tend to be small, well, they're all smaller than IEEE and more focused, but if you have a specific need that you would like help with, they're great partners with us on a number of projects and are certainly a place you can look as well. And if all of that doesn't work, I am always available to help point you in the right direction. I'm Russ Harrison, the Managing Director of IEEE USA in Washington, D.C. My staff and I represent the 150,000 technology engineers in IEEE who live in the United States, including some of the most entrepreneurial, innovative, and creative minds in the technology world. We are tremendously proud of our members and look forward to finding ways to help them help you do whatever you do. NSF is, of course, a tremendously important organization to American competitiveness and American innovation. And if there's anything that we can do to help make your job easier, help you do your job better, we're more than happy to talk with you about it. My email address, r.t.harrison@ieee.org. My phone number, my direct phone number, 202-530-8326. Before we go to questions, I want to tell you a little bit more about the event we're planning in Arkansas this September. And again, the event is being organized in conjunction with EPSCoR and the IEEE Arkansas section. So I'm sure you all know about the CHIPS Act. One of the things the CHIPS Act did is it set aside a larger pot of money for research at universities that don't do a lot of research. IEEE USA fought for that. We think it's very important. And frankly, I think this sort of diversifying the innovation ecosystem is the most important part of the CHIPS Act in the long run. The problem is this: universities that don't do a lot of research don't actually know how to do research. They know how to do research. They don't know how to get grants for research. Our project in Arkansas will bring small university researchers together to teach them how to get NSF research grants. We'll also pull in the small business community and, well, the business community more broadly in Arkansas to talk about how to do tech transfer to get the brilliant ideas that universities are creating out into the marketplace, specifically in what we're calling the greater Arkansas region. We're going to pull in representatives from all the other states that touch Arkansas as well. But this is the kind of thing that IEEE is really good at, getting diverse communities within the technology space together in this case, literally one room to talk. And while we're going to have workshops, we're going to teach people how to do things and teach them about government programs, particularly NSF programs. I think kind of the biggest benefit of the program is simply getting, entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, academic researchers, and government program directors in the same room, around the same table, talking to each other so they can understand each other better and do a better job together. We're very excited about that program. I'm working with some of your colleagues on it already. If you're interested in being involved, let me know. But if you have other ideas on how IEEE can create these type of events, we're really interested in hearing them. And with that, I'm going to try to pull myself up so I can see myself. And if there are any questions, comments, now would be the time to hear them.
Thank you so
Rebecca?
much. This is wonderful information about IEEE, and interested to know that the September event you've discussed, is that have a date or dates?
I can't pull my calendar up right now. I believe it's the 13th and 14th of September.
Okay, thank you.
Might be the 14th and 15th, whichever the Wednesday and Thursday are. That's what it is.
And is that going to be in Little Rock or Fayetteville?
It's in Little Rock.
Little Rock, okay. Okay, perfect. I think our center for sure would be interested in finding out how we can be involved. So I'll talk with you separately about that.
Absolutely. We're just getting it up and going. So we're still working out the details. I'm sorry. I'm trying to stop sharing my screen so I can see me, and it's not letting me, but that's all right. We'll move forward. So yeah, we're very excited about that. It turns out, we didn't know this when we started the process, but it turns out Arkansas is a really, really cool state to work with. And so a lot of interesting pieces are falling into place already that should make that a really cool event. So we're excited to be in Arkansas, and we're excited to work with the NSF on it.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mhm.
See, I'm not seeing any other questions at the moment, so I think you covered everything pretty well.
Well, as folks come up with ideas, if you encounter challenges, you will all get a copy of my slides, which have my email address on it. Feel free to reach out anytime, and I will try to point you in the right direction to make whatever you're trying to do happen. And would love to work with you.
I know that some of my clients have a need to grow their teams, or at least bring on advisors and consultants with subject matter expertise in different fields of engineering. So it's been helpful to have you as a connector to help them meet folks that might be interested in collaborating with them on those projects. So appreciate all of your help.
It was a pleasure, and I look forward to doing it in the future as well.
Well, very good. Well, thanks so much for the information and for your time this morning. I hope everyone has a great rest of your week, and you'll get the slides and recording within a couple of days through your GoToWebinar email.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, NSF, for hosting me. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Russ.
Have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye.